I'm changing things up today. I was actually going to review an article of some new news that came out recently with Dr. Rhonda Patrick talking about the benefits of vigorous exercise. However, while I was doing my research, I came across another news article that said one of the pitfalls of doing vigorous exercise. So instead of doing one versus the other, I'm actually going to talk about the pros and cons of vigorous exercise, talk about some of the stuff that's on the news, but kind of give an overall idea of, is vigorous exercise good for you? What the heck even is vigorous exercise? What are different types of vigorous exercises, and what are the cons? Because I feel like, especially for women, it doesn't really matter what age. I feel like every age and every decade that you are as a woman, there's going to be some sort of, you should be doing this, you shouldn't be doing this because of your hormone health, right? And as someone who is 40 years old, I am doing a lot of perimenopause research now for myself and for my clients. And part of that, over the past couple of years, I've seen research saying like, careful, HIIT training and high intensity training is too much for women and you should stop doing it as you get older. So is there any validity to this? What do you need to know? That's what we're going to get into in this week's episode. But first, I have to say, welcome to the show. If this is your first time tuning in to the Fit Women's Weekly podcast, do me a quick favor. No matter what platform you're either watching this on or listening to, make sure that you subscribe. I put out brand new episodes every single week. In the audio format, I put out a smaller episode every Friday. So you actually get 2 podcasts per week, one on Wednesday and one on Fridays. And then over on YouTube, you can watch the episodes from start to finish, and I make sure to put all the links below for all the resources that I use. So if that's interesting to you, go check it out on YouTube. But if you are watching this on YouTube already, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and let me know of any particular topics or questions that you have for future episodes. You guys, I have now done over 600 podcasts, which every single time I hit a milestone, I think of like, oh my gosh, I need to bring this up in the next episode. And then I record the episode. I get so excited about what I'm talking about that I forget. So yeah, we actually just hit the 600th milestone about a week or two ago. So go us and Fit Women's Weekly. And the best way that you can help celebrate the podcast is simply subscribing, liking, and sharing. Take a screenshot. So there's been a couple of questions, and I want to walk everyone through this. I promise I'll make this short and sweet so that we can get into the topic for today. But I've had a couple of people reach out and go like, I'm just not very tech savvy. I don't know how to share the podcast. So when it comes to Apple, when it comes to Apple Podcast, there's no direct way to share that episode. What you can do is take a screenshot with your phone, hitting I think it's the up volume and the power button at the same time. We'll take a screenshot, and then you can copy the actual URL for the podcast by hitting the 3 buttons in your app. And there's a couple of different options, and you just go copy link. And then when you go over to your Instagram or whatever platform it is, you can then upload the picture to your stories, go into the little doodad option up at the top of stories where you can pick different things to add, and you can click link, and then that's where you would post the link to the podcast. So yeah, there's no direct way. Where your Spotify, you can actually say share episode, and then it'll make its own little graphic to be able to carry into stories, which is cool. Apple does not have that yet, which is very surprising. They need to get on that. So yeah, you still have to do it the old-fashioned way. Take a picture and share it. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about vigorous exercise. And is it good? I don't think it comes to anyone's shock that I do high-intensity exercise and workouts multiple times per week. It is what excites me. It is what I love doing. I love the way that it makes my body feel. I love the way it makes my body look, because yeah, at the end of the day, I do work out to try to look my best along with feeling my best. And then me personally, because of my gotta go attitude, I'm not somebody who can sit down and slow down. So high intensity exercise just works for me and my personality. And remember, at the end of the day, there's so many different forms of exercise. So if you are someone that's just like, I hate exercising, and you don't do it consistently because of that, it just means you haven't found the right type of workout. You do not have to do CrossFit style workouts. You don't have to do the type of workouts that I enjoy doing. You don't have to do 3x10s when it comes to bench and squats and more traditional weightlifting. Personally, for me, I can do that 1 or 2 times per week, but anything outside of that, I'm like, this is boring. I'm not going to do it. So just make sure that you're playing around and trying to find the type of workout that you enjoy, or at least enjoy at the end, right? Because we talk about this all the time. Most of the time when I first get into the gym and getting ready to work out, I'm like, I don't want to do this. But once I get going, I fall in love with it. So if you're not excited about your workout at the start of every workout, that's normal. But do you have that ability that during the workout, you can just put your head down and go? Afterwards, you feel great. And then you have those moments where you're like, man, I actually enjoy working out. If you have those, then you found the right thing. If you haven't, keep playing around. All right, so now that we know that I like vigorous exercise, what does the actual science say? So first off, vigorous exercise, when I've done research, say that it's taking your heart rate for a sustained amount of time over 80% of your max heart rate, which we talked about, I think, on last week's episode, where your max heart rate is 220 minus your age. So 220 minus 40, just for an example, would mean that my max heart rate is 180 beats per minute. So if I'm able to sustain that, then I'm doing vigorous exercise. But most of the data that I found, and things like the CDC and stuff, and World Health Organization generally say that high intensity exercise is 75% of your heart rate, your max heart rate. So 80 to 75%. So take that as you will. For me personally, because I am in pretty good shape where I can take my heart rate to a really high level, then I say 80% for me. But if you are brand new to fitness, then yes, 75% of your max heart rate might make you go, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to fall over, right? It's going to make each person feel a little bit differently depending on where you are with your fitness. So there are actually a couple of different types of high intensity training. I think that our head always goes first to HIT, high intensity interval training, where you might do short bursts of something. You might sprint for 20 seconds and then rest for, up to a minute or 2 minutes based on how hard you really push yourself. Or I like to do intervals this morning. I did my running intervals, which was technically the same workout that I did last week, but I did add on. So I did 20 rounds of 2 minutes of hard running followed by 1 minute of active rest, which was just walking. I did that for 20 rounds. Last week I did it for 17. I thought that I did it for 19, but once I went back and looked at my actual workout that I had typed into my workout timer, I had put in 17. So today I did 20, but I actually ended up also doing about a 5-minute tempo training, which that's the next example. And tempo simply means a sustained hard push for a limited amount of time. So some people will look at a tempo run being like, I'm going to go push my 10K pace for 3 miles, right? It doesn't have to be with running. It's just an easy example. But where you're really trying to push the pace and go towards your threshold, but you were able to sustain it. So the way that I hit my tempo this morning was because I run, I've talked about this, in the dark. It is very early outside. I start my run at 5:20. And one part of the area that I run in is there's not really a lot of street lights. And there's houses on one side and woods on the other side. And y'all, I heard something in the woods this morning. I only put an earphone in one side, so I could hear something out of this side. And I kind of just thought like, oh, it must be a deer. I see lots of deers. And then I kind of kept running for a little bit more. And all of a sudden I realized like I was still hearing this. It was almost as if it was moving with me. And I decided to skip the 1 minute rest, actually paused my timer, and just ran until I was at an area where houses were on both sides and the streetlights were back out. I don't freak myself out very often, and I'm sure that I was fine, but it was enough, where you just kind of go, oh my God, what am I doing? So yeah, I pushed it for more like a 5-minute time, going pretty freaking as fast as I could. So that was my tempo run. So we've got HIT training, we have tempo training, and then we have high intensity steady state, aka threshold training, which is even longer than tempo. It's trying to go basically as long as you can, pushing that threshold, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone into more of like a zone 3 or zone 4 state. We've heard of zone 2 training a lot, where you're able to, for 30 plus minutes, go and have a conversation while you're running or you're biking or whatever the case is. You're able to maintain that pace. You feel pretty comfortable and you're at a pace where you're like, I could probably keep this up. High intensity, steady state is you are running or whatever form of cardio it is, and there's a part of your brain going, I can't keep this up much longer. I can't keep this up much longer, right? And you keep pushing it from 1 minute to the next minute, and by the time you're done, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that I did that. So those are just 3 examples of high intensity training that do count. So anytime, again, that your heart rate is going up to around the 75 to 80% or higher of your max heart rate, you have now gone into the territory of vigorous. One thing that made me go into this was that Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who is really known in the fitness industry and the nutrition world for her science, recently put out a podcast talking about new research coming out where vigorous exercise was shown to do amazing things for the heart. And I actually put down a little bit of it. Okay, so here is what she was talking about, that 2 years of vigorous exercise in 50-year-olds was able to reduce the aging heart by 20 years. Reduce it, not prevent it from aging, actually was able to turn the clock. So somebody working out vigorously for 2 years who was around 50 years old, when they went back to check on their heart health, was that of a 30-year-old. That's huge. That's not the only benefit that she found or that the science found that she talked about. So I did want to also know, I think it was 1,500 people that were in the study. But along with heart health, it was also found that lactate generated from high intensity exercise increased your GLUT4 activity. I know you're like, what is that? But basically just said that it was improving glucose disposal and insulin sensitivity. So it's going to help the muscles uptake glucose so that they have more energy to get you through your workout, where at the same time, it's also going to help with insulin sensitivity, something that we talk about all the time. You want to be insulin sensitive so that you're able to regulate your insulin hormones from blood sugar. And a lot of times now, especially in America, people are becoming insulin insensitive, meaning that they are at a higher risk for type 2 diabetes. And then the third thing that she talked about was that vigorous exercise is one of the best ways to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. So what does biogenesis mean? So mitochondria, it's the powerhouse of a cell. We all remember a cell. Remember, it has the nucleus or the little brain, and it has Golgi bodies. You guys tell I do remember a couple of things from being a bio major, but a cell also has mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of your cells. It is what produces energy, and specifically ATP for the production of muscles and your brain. But as we get older, our mitochondria decreases. However, they found that vigorous exercise can help not only maintain the mitochondria that you have, but actually promote something called mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning that your body is able to produce more mitochondria. So we are able to produce more energy and be more ADT, have more ATP, adenotriphosphates is what ATP stands for, in order to have more energy and to also help to prevent aging throughout our bodies, to make our mind healthier and to help our muscles maintain their health as well, so that as we get older, we can maintain our metabolic health, we can maintain our muscle strength as much as possible. Basically, we're trying to fight off the things that typically happen with aging, right? You lose muscle mass, lose sarcopenia, we lose our bone density. As a part of that, our metabolic health goes down the drain. However, what this study is finding out is basically we can help prevent aging by simply working out a little bit harder, a little bit more frequently. So those are some of the pros, but I decided to go through and do a little bit more research outside of just what Dr. Rhonda Patrick talked about, so that I could give you guys some more pros to high interval training. And then we're going to talk about some of the cons that come along with vigorous training. So a couple more of the benefits. One, you're going to burn more calories. You burn more calories in a shorter amount of time with high intensity training, because obviously you are pushing harder, right? If you have 10 minutes and you're trying to give it everything you have for that 10 minutes, then you're going to burn more calories, more energy than what you would do if you were doing a light, easy, simple workout for 10 minutes. It makes more sense. But at the same time, because it is very hard on the body, not only are you going to burn more calories during the actual workout of it itself, but kind of like strength training, or exactly like strength training, it takes time for your muscles and your body to recover. So you are actually at a increased caloric burn after the workout is done as well, for up to around 48 hours. So very much similar to strength training. That's one of the pros, where yes, you might not be burning the same amount of calories 30 minutes of strength training that you would in 30 minutes of running, but the overall metabolic or calorie burn is going to be high for the strength training because your body's having to recover. Whereas if you're just doing a 30-minute steady state to workout, your body recover, like you stop running and then you're pretty good to go, right? There's not a lot of damage to it, except if you are brand new to running. Number two, improved aerobic capacity. Your aerobic capacity is your body's ability to take in oxygen and transport it effectively to your working muscles. And for your working muscles, to use oxygen for energy production. And we always think of VO2 max. With high interval training, it has been shown very, very efficient at increasing our VO2 max, improving our overall aerobic capacity. So if you are somebody who gets winded going upstairs, perhaps you need to start doing some more harder, intense workouts. Next one is increases your anaerobic threshold. So aerobic threshold, meaning that you have to use oxygen in order to get energy, whereas anaerobic actually goes more to that creatine phosphate, so CP, is one of our body's pathways for anaerobic energy, meaning that you do not need oxygen, and it is for very fast burst of movement. So if I am lifting a weight that is very, very heavy, I'm going to use an anaerobic energy source to make that happen. And just as important as it is for us to work our aerobic capacity, it's also very important for us to work our anaerobic capacity as well. And the cool thing about high intensity training, specifically Hiit, is it is going to help improve both of those. So 2 birds with 1 stone is pretty cool. Improve insulin sensitivity. We have already talked about that. And then we have shorter durations. So like I mentioned, high intensity training is very hard on the body. It is very intense, and therefore it doesn't take a lot to get a lot out of it. So you don't want to go and do interval sprints for 60 minutes like you would a steady state run, right? That's going to be exhausting on the system. So instead, you can get amazing bang for your buck from doing 20 to 30 minutes or just 75 minutes of high intensity per week would do amazing things. My husband and I have gone out to the track before and just spent about 20 minutes alternating between each of us running 40s with having breaks in there. So I think we probably ended up running 5 to 6 40s per person. And by the end of it, it felt as if I had run a 5K. It was incredible. So you don't need a lot of time to be able to get a lot of bang for your buck. And if you're somebody who has a hard time trying to fit their workouts in because you only have 15, 20, 30 minutes, then high intensity training could be the answer to that problem. And if you didn't know, over on the Fit Women's Weekly YouTube page, I actually put out brand new 5-minute high intensity workouts every single week, which alone would be a great workout. Or if you have time, I always try to put in the show notes how you can make it a longer workout to make it fit the time that you have. So for example, the workout that I actually just put out this week was a 5-minute AMRAP, and you could do it just that one time for as many rounds as possible. Or in the show notes, I have it to say rest for 3 minutes and then repeat the entire workout for 2 to 3 times total. So then you're getting in a 20 to 25-minute workout, and is going to be a good one. So definitely go check out that. I'll make sure to I'll link it up so you can go check that out. So with all of these benefits, and then I also had one more to help you break out of a plateau. So if you've been doing the same sort of workout from time to time, then maybe it is time to just shake things up a little bit so that your body goes, oh my gosh, what the heck are we doing today? And one way to help shake things up is to add speed intervals or just a high intensity interval workout each week into your training. So if you've been doing the same upper body day, lower body day, back and forth for 12 weeks now, chances are your body's pretty adjusted to that. So why not shake things up for a couple of weeks and add in some high intensity training? I'm personally doing this. I talked about it last week with my running, where I've gotten into the habit of just doing zone 2 steady state runs 3 times a week for the past 2 years. And while that was great and it served its purpose then, I am now ready to change things up. I'm ready to start taking my running up to a new level, at least to where it is right now. I don't know if I'll ever get better than where I once was, but what's the Toby Keith line? Not as good as I once was, but I'm as good for as I ever was, or whatever you guys, if y'all are a Toby Keith fan, you know what I'm talking about. But I can still get better than where I am right now. And so on Tuesdays now, I'm doing that by doing interval training. And like I said, today I did 2 minutes of fast, which was at about a 5K pace, followed by 1 minute of rest and recovery. So change things up, break out of that plateau. So what are some of the cons of vigorous exercise? And the reason that I brought this up, again, I was originally just going to talk about the pros of it, but then I literally found a news article that was published this year that says, where does it go? Study finds a potential downfall with Hiit. So what could that downfall be? And that downfall is that vigorous exercise could muffle your immune system. And I kind of laughed about this because, to be perfectly honest, I already knew this to be true, not necessarily of Hiit training, but anytime you're going for really intense exercise, you have to remember that exercise is a strain on the body. That is why it is so important to have rest periods between workouts. Or if you're going to do lower body day one day, let those body parts have a rest and do upper body the next day, because otherwise it's going to be too much on your system. You're forever going to fatigue, and you don't get results from your actual workouts. You get results when you push your body, you force it to adapt, and then you let it rest in recovery to build in order for it to adapt. So you don't get the results from the workout, you get the results during the time that you're recovering from said workout. And so the idea that HIIT training could lead to a decreased immune system makes perfect sense, because if you're continuously pushing yourself very, very hard, you're going to put yourself at risk of getting sick easier. I always see this. I always get very nervous about this when I do like half marathon training or after my ultra or any really big fitness event that I've done in the past, because I know that all those weeks of training have built up a lot of stress in the body, and then the actual event itself can be very stressful on the body. So that's why it's so important that after those big events that you take it easy and you take multiple days, if not weeks, to rest and recover. So yes, one of the pitfalls to exercise and going hard with your exercise is that it can decrease your immune system. Make sure that you're doing the other things outside of your exercise to keep yourself as healthy as possible, like washing your hands, hydrating, making sure that your nutrition is up there, you're getting your protein in, you're getting your fruits and your vegetables, you're sleeping, you're recovering, you're working on your mobility. Those things will help counteract that. But are those the only, or is that the only negative thing when it comes to vigorous exercise? And unfortunately, no. There's also a lot of stress on the muscles, the joints, and the nervous system, which of course makes sense because it's going to be more impactful, right? Sprinting is a lot harder on the body than walking. You're landing with a lot more force, and it could put a lot more stress on the body of itself. So make sure, if you are considering going into a more high intensity training realm, that you don't have injuries and that you are physically capable of pushing yourself. Always talk to your doctor if need be. Always have to put that out there to make sure that your body is in a place that can handle that kind of stress. Number 2, higher susceptibility to being overtrained or burnt out. And I feel like we've kind of already talked about this. I think that overtraining is a word that gets tossed around a lot, but it's really not as common as people think that it is. Now, overdoing it in a workout happens all the time, where you push really, really hard and then the next day you're like, oh my gosh, it hurts to sit on a toilet. We all do that from time to time, but that is not overtraining. That's overdoing it in a certain one-time period, and chances are most people then let themselves rest and recover from that before they get going again. Overtraining happens when you are overdoing it time after time after time, and you're not letting your body truly rest and recover. You're not taking a rest day. Every single one of your workouts is looking at high intensity. You're trying to push the weight every single time you're working out, and that's where the overtraining comes in. And I am going to just keep that in there. And I will also mention that women do tend to have a higher risk of falling into the overtraining realm of overdoing their workouts, because we have this mentality of like, if a little exercise is good, then a lot of exercise has to be better, right? And I feel like that's just psychologically sometimes stuck in our head. But just be aware of who you are. And most people do not go into the overtraining realm. It is very, very hard to actually suffer from overtraining, but you do have to make sure. I also know that a lot of people that hang out in my circle are really big into exercise. Just make sure to check in with yourself and make sure that you are following a really good program, and that not every single workout has to be at full blast. Not every single workout has to be at high intensity. And in fact, I only recommend about anywhere from 1 to 3 workouts really taking you into that space. And then the third con is irritable mood. Some research shows that high-intensity cardio training can induce irritability in some people, not all people. Low and moderate intensity has been associated with elevated mood in multiple studies, but mood following high intensity seems to vary from one person to the next. Me personally, I get an exercise high when I push really, really hard. When I am doing a great high vigorous workout, I finish and I'm like, oh my God, let's talk about it. Let's do this. I'll start dancing. But I can understand how this is sometimes such a high vigorous workout puts a lot on the nervous system that it could absolutely lead to you feeling kind of in a like blah down mood. Now, I also wanted to mention one other con that I did not see while I was doing my research, but it's a con that I just know for myself and from training women for almost 20 years. And that is that high intensity cardio can also affect your caloric intake, right? If I have a really, really hard training day, the following day, I might have one of those days where just nothing seems to keep me full. I want to eat all the food. My appetite is just ravenous. And sometimes I'll go like, wait, what's going on? Where am I in my cycle? Why do I feel this way? And then I'll remember, oh yeah, yesterday was a really high intense day with my workouts, and that's why I'm doing that. And on those days, I'll make sure to eat clean, but I will make sure that if I'm still hungry, I will give my body that extra fuel because it clearly needs it to help recover from the day before. However, if you're not in tune with that and it just kind of hits you of like, oh my gosh, I'm so starving, it could be really easy to turn to cravings and sugar, and then which case you're just going to cancel out all the hard work if trying to change your overall fitness or change your body composition is important. Then something to consider and might be a reason why macro counting or tracking your meals might be beneficial. So tracking your meals isn't always necessary, right? But if you're changing something with your workouts, then maybe you'll also want to track your meals so that you can see how they go together hand in hand. So that's what we got. I did want to see like what is considered too much, and the only thing that I could really find was from Nike.com, and it said the Department of Health and Human Services does not specify an upper limit of exercise at which overexercise could become a risk. As a general rule, women's health specialist Felice Gersh said that 90 minutes per day is the point with people become susceptible to overtraining syndrome, and it's associated with symptoms. Now, I'm not going to talk all about overexercise in this podcast. I have done that before, but I did just want to put it out there that when you're really pushing it all the time, you can kind of start to crave that push more often. It's almost creating like an addictive personality to exercise. So just something to think about and to check in from time to time. And there we have it, you guys. Oh, and the other thing, one last article that I found was that studies suggest, so remember we just talked about how one of the downfalls could be that HIIT exercise could decrease your happiness. Well, There's a new study that just came out saying that studies suggest that Hiit can be more effective than therapy and meds for mental well-being. So I'm just going to read a very, very short part of this, and this was published in Men's Health. It says, though many of us have long intuited the value of physical activity in maintaining our mental health, its psychological effects have been hard to quantify. Exercise has been used to treat those suffering from clinical anxiety, and a Harvard study, so you know it has to be good, it's from Harvard, suggests that increases in activity levels can slash our odds of depression by more than a quarter. Compared with conventional medical intervention. A new analysis of 1,039 trials by researchers at the University of South Australia has finally put a figure on training's mental health. And according to the study's lead author, hitting the gym can be 1.5 times more effective than cognitive behavior therapy or even medication. What's more, high-intensity activity in shorter bursts was found to be the most effective in reducing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and psychological distress. And then they give like a 15-minute dumbbell workout that could be super helpful and more helpful than yoga or a leisurely jog. Now, just to keep in mind, this does not mean I am not saying stop your anxiety medicine, stop your depression medicine, and go work out. I am saying if you are somebody like me, who has suffered from anxiety, who has suffered from depression, then maybe changing your workout routine a little bit to include 1 or 2 high-intensity workouts per week can help with that. And then in the future, you never know, you might be able to back off on your dose a little bit, or at least talk to your doctor about what different options you have moving forward. But please don't get off of your medicine. I just find it really interesting that whatever research you find here that says this one thing, you can find research that says the complete opposite thing on this side. I can say for me and for my clients at Fit Women's Weekly Live that HIIT training has changed the way that I feel. It has changed the way that I age. It has changed the way that I move. It has changed the bodies of hundreds of clients that I have. And yeah, all in all, I absolutely think that there are more benefits than there are cons when it comes to moving your body and moving your body fast and with purpose at 75 or higher of your maximum heart rate. All right, guys. Now, if you found this episode interesting, I need you to do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button and share the episode. There's also other ways that you can connect with Fit Women's Weekly and with me down below. Make sure that you're following me over on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and that's Kendall Boyle Fitness. But where I'm actually the most active is over at fitwomensweekly.com, where you can learn more about my online strength training studio, Fit Women's Weekly Live. This is an online streaming studio where you don't have to fight traffic. You don't have to make class at a certain time. But every day, there are brand new workouts that are recorded live and set up for streaming at any time. Every day has a different theme. Monday is body weight, HIIT intervals. Tuesday is full body weightlifting called Strong. Upper body is on Wednesday, lower body is on Thursday, and full body kettlebells is on Friday. So go try it out. Let me know what you think. Come hang out with me. We'll talk, because it's not just workouts. It's me coaching you, giving you modifications, and helping you along the way. And I'd love for you to try it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I am going to go and do some more research. I got to do some social media research, and I will get this episode up and ready for you guys. And then I will be back on Friday with a brand new one where I will share a little bit more about my 40th birthday activities, as well as give the real reason why I am so motivated to work out the way that I do. And it's not a reason that you would ever think of. So I'm excited to share that with you guys and have that talk. All right. Mwah. Bye.